Nuevo Vallarta of the Riviera Nayarit has seen significant economic growth in the past couple of years. As more and more real estate inventory continues to become available in the area, with larger sized properties and lower prices in some of the more established regions in Puerto Vallarta, such as the Romantic Zone, the question remains: is Nuevo Vallarta worth the investment for short-term rental properties? Hola, hola. I'm Diani Leal, real estate agent and investment consultant here in Puerto Vallarta and Riviera Nayarit. And this channel is brought to you by Diani Might Investment Realty. So before we get started, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and give us a like and some comments if you like the content, if you're interested in it. I always want to hear from you and hopefully continue to improve the quality of my videos and the relevance of my content. In this episode of Let's Invest, we'll explore the burgeoning short-term rental market in Nuevo Vallarta and determine whether it's a worthwhile investment. Many potential investors who are interested in the area are unsure if the short-term rental market in Nuevo Vallarta is stable or if it's just a passing trend. Today, we're going to take a look at the short-term rental market statistics from the past 3 years to see what the growth looks like over time, especially now that the economic impact of the recent pandemic has subsided. So it's a really good time to take a look at the numbers and see what things are looking like and what you're really getting yourself into as far as a long-term investment. The platform that I'll be using to dig into the rental market statistics is called airDNA. And airDNA draws comps from all over the area, really any area in the world, and looks at how many days they're rented, how many days it's actually available, and what individual property owners are earning from their vacation rentals. It also links you to the specific comparable properties, so you can take a look and see how similar it might actually be to a property that you're interested in, for example, or if it's just a realistic vacation rental and not necessarily a hotel or something that might have a huge advantage that would inflate the numbers. So you are able to assess that by taking a look in zooming in on the comps, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's dive right in. So if you're ever interested in an airDNA subscription, this is what it looks like, and you can go on the site and check out the prices, and right here they give you some data insights, and you can enter an address to see the earning potential and all of that. I'm going to log into my site because I do have a subscription that gives me more access to more details, which I use for clients and producing reports and everything like that. So we're going to enter in on that subscription. So here we have the screen that shows you all the details on the global short-term rental market, and airDNA draws their comps specifically from Airbnb and VRBO and no other site. So obviously all of the data is not 100% complete, but it does give you a pretty good picture of what people are getting for their vacation rentals in the area. So here we're just going to add in Nuevo Vallarta, Nayarit, Mexico. And we're going to start by getting the broad overview of what the vacation rental market looks like here in Nuevo Vallarta specifically. So here we have the market score is 75, and that is rental demand, revenue growth, a 27. Seasonality and regulation. So the seasonality is the highest scoring component. So surprisingly, in Nuevo Vallarta, the seasonality is scoring quite high with an 86, which shows that the rental market is pretty consistent and has bookings year-round. The regulation, which is how strictly regulated short-term rentals are in Nuevo Vallarta, has a 48. The revenue growth, which is how much they compare on a month-to-month basis, is a 27. and then the actual demand is a 26. So it's not super high in those areas, but the seasonality is a pretty promising factor, especially somewhere like Puerto Vallarta, where there's a very distinct high season and low season, which impacts your revenue for your short-term vacation rental. So right here, what we see is the annual revenue is an average of $39.2 thousand. Average occupancy rate is 45%. And as far as the seasonality goes, you can see it's, of course, in all of the Puerto Vallarta area. December is the biggest month. There's almost 100% occupancy in the entire region at that time. But the rest of the months are pretty normal here. And you can just take a look at the overview. So the RevPAR right here is $134, which is the revenue per available rental. And that's a very broad calculation, taking all of the available rentals in the entire region and then dividing them by the number of properties that are available. But that's the average you see there, 134, and the average daily rate in Nuevo Vallarta is $297 a night. So the total active listings in the area are 863. And you can see that most of them are listed on Airbnb, 16% are on VRBO only, and 25% are on both. Here, you can see the rental size is the most popular in the market. And you can see here that in Nuevo Vallarta, the majority of rentals are 2 bedrooms. A tie for second are 1 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. And then, of course, the more limited inventory is 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms, which pretty much goes for all of Puerto Vallarta. But also Nuevo Vallarta, the larger size units are a little bit more popular. So the rental growth in the last 3 years is up by 11%. And you can take a look here. And this is an important statistic because, as we discussed earlier, the pandemic threw things a little bit for a loop. So we want to take a look at what things are looking like more now, so you can have an idea of, hopefully there won't be any more pandemics in the near future. And this is what it'll look like as the growth rate steadily increases over time into the future. So you can see here, there is, in December 2021, 998 active listings, and those listings have gone up. In December 2023, there were more listings than ever, which probably makes a lot of sense. As we discussed, December is the most popular month, so there are a lot of people that will put their property on just for the month of December. And then here you can see how the growth of vacation rentals available has grown over time. So here you have the listings by annual availability, and what you can see is that most people that have short-term vacation rentals aren't really renting them out year-round. They're actually only renting them from 1 night to 3 months, and that's 48% of available listings. So when you see that there are currently 863 available rental properties in Nuevo Vallarta, just keep in mind that almost half are only available for 3 months a year. Then here we have the ones that are available for 3 to 6 months, which is about a quarter of them, 23%. And then we have the 6 to 9 months, and then 9 months to a year, which means they're mostly rental properties, and that's only about 14%. So here we have listings by rental type. You have an entire home, which is 96%. Shared room, which doesn't exist in Nuevo Vallarta, and who's sharing rooms with strangers, that seems like it would be a little bit weird. I would be surprised if that's a very popular thing anywhere. So keeping that in mind when you're thinking about, how you can divide up your property appropriately and what's really working in the current market. So right here, we have the cancellation policy and minimum stay data, which is really going to apply more so when it's time to list your property and you're thinking about all the specifics. And this is relevant information as well. I also do provide an average daily rate and other suggested reports for clients who are looking at a little bit more of a deeper analysis on their vacation rental property when they're in a later stage. Right now, what we're talking about is it worth the investment? And what does the return look like? airDNA will also suggest property managers, which is something that your real estate agent can also help you with. So right here, we have the occupancy rate at 45%, and you can see that it's much higher in December than it is in September, which is pretty typical for the region. And also, just to set some context, high season is typically from November until March or April, and then low season would be those hot summer months for the rest of the year. So here you have an average length of stay is 4 days, and this kind of helps with the financial projections when you get into the numbers there. And then the booking lead time, 37 days. So that's how far people are booking in advance typically. Here are the occupancy rates, which have gone down by about 5% in the last 12 months. And we can take a look at 3 years. So what you can see is that in 2024, we're right here, and we're actually just on the brink of high season at the moment. So it's hard to tell what the high season data looks like. What we're really doing is looking more at the low season for this year. But if we want to look at about a year ago, you can see 2023, 60.5% occupancy over there in December of 2023, and the high season was pretty good at that time. It was a little bit higher in 2022 and then lower in 2021. So you can take a look at what the past 3 years have looked like in Nuevo Vallarta, and what you can see is it's all been pretty consistent for the past 3 years, including this year. And how long are guests staying? Really just between 3 and 5 days, and it seems to range within that time frame. Here, how many bedrooms do the listings have? This is something to consider when you're thinking about what type of property you might be looking for aside from what your personal needs are and the needs of your family. Another thing to consider is how well are they renting? And also in a market, you want to always take a look at how much competition there really is. So if there isn't a lot of competition in a certain area, you're more likely to get more booking. Looking and seeing all the active listings are 2 bedrooms doesn't necessarily mean you're going to want to get a 2-bedroom. So right here, what we have is the booking demand and how the booking demand changes over time. We have in the pink, the number of booked listings, and then in the blue is how long those listings are actually booked. So all these things that impact your revenue. And you can take a look at it and see it looks like pretty typical high and low seasons. You have December and July looking like some pretty popular months. And as you can see, it fluctuates a lot throughout the year, with popular vacation times being more commonly booked, such as December and July, for longer stays, as people typically take longer vacations those times of year. And we can take a look here at what the last 3 years look like to see what the booking demand looks like. The booking demand, when you take a look at this graph, has increased over time. So this year, it's still going up and up. And here, of course, finally, we have revenue. So the average revenue is $39,000 a year. The average place is grossing about $40,000 in revenue a year. For a house, it's higher at $56,600, and then an apartment is $35,000. So this is all per different category, but the average right here is $39,000. So how much revenue did listings earn per month over the last 12 months? So you see here, once again, December is high season, but also July. So obviously this directly correlates with the number of bookings. How much revenue did listings earn per bedroom? So you can take a look that the 6-bedroom is up there. And those are really pretty solid investments because there's not a lot of competition and they market to a very specific crowd. Group trips, which are pretty popular in the region. And those would be the highest average revenue. And of course, they have more bedrooms, so that's to be expected. And then you can see it pretty much goes up depending on the number of bedrooms. But the 5 bedrooms and the 6 bedrooms are way up there. And a 4-bedroom is considerably higher than the 1, 2, 3 area. The average daily rate, $297. The entire place for $300 a night is the average. Professionally managed, $200 a night. Luxury is closer to the $1,000 a night range, and you can actually see that is going up, while the others are going a little bit further down. So here with the average daily rate, you can take a look at what it is per month, and of course, December is the highest. And this will just tell you what the average daily rate is per bedroom, which is another useful statistic when it comes time to list your property. And this right here actually shows you on a day-to-day basis. So you can pick an exact date and check out the average daily rate on that date. And then here it goes by price tier. And then here what guests are willing to pay. And here you can also check it out per day if you just look at this interactive calendar, and it'll tell you the revenue per available rental on any given day. And right here, how far in advance guests are booking. And that goes as far back as 12 months. Okay, so now I want to check out another market. We're not going to go as much into detail. Now you do have a broad overview of what Nuevo Vallarta looks like. I also do rental revenue analyses for clients specifically when they're interested in a property, for example, and I'm happy to do that and include whatever data is most interesting for you at that particular period of time. Here, we're just going to take a look at the romantic zone so we can see what other regions might be looking like in Puerto Vallarta. So already you can see that according to airDNA, the actual score for the submarket of romantic zone is 64, which is a little bit lower than Nuevo Vallarta's. But you can see it's a little bit more balanced. You might have a lower seasonality and maybe higher regulation, and the revenue growth is much lower. And there's a big reason for this. So I think this is an important detail when it comes to analyzing the return of investment for a particular rental property. You want to think about the growth over time. And of course, the vacation rental market impacts the price of the property. So if the vacation rental market is currently okay, you can probably buy in at a lower rate. But if it's projected to grow over time, you're going to be getting more back for your investment. Whereas you look at a more developed area like the romantic zone, and what you see is it's plateaued. There isn't a lot of development happening. The prices are quite high for purchasing at this moment. And the vacation rental market isn't really going to grow that much because there's not a lot of growth. So you're not going to see as much growth in romantic zone, but what you will see is it's more of a secure investment. It's a little bit lower risk. What you see is what you get. It's pretty much a sure thing. So it really depends on how risk adverse you are and how interested and confident you are in predicting what that growth might look like over time and seeing if you can get a little bit more back through that prediction. So Zona Romantica, you have occupancy rate of 59%. Annual revenue is pretty much the same as Nuevo Vallarta. Average daily rate is $241, which is a little bit lower than Nuevo Vallarta. The total active listings, there's a lot more in this area, so it's going to be a little bit more competition. When you take a look at the rental growth in the last 3 years, you can see it has dipped a bit. Like this low season was probably lower than most, but also, as you can see, the high season has become more popular over time and does continue to grow in popularity with the vacation rentals. And once again, you have listings by annual availability, listings by rental type. As you can see, an entire home is pretty much the way to go. Here in the romantic zone, listings are a little bit more divided. It's basically 25% are 1 to 3 months, 25% are 3 to 6 months, 25% are 6 to 9, and another 25 are 9 to 12. So I just want to take a little bit of a look at here just over the growth over time and take a look at the last 3 years. So here, take a look at 2021 is lacking data here, but 2022, 23, 24, it's pretty much stayed the same over time, and the seasonality is a little bit more pronounced in this area, with January and February and March and December being months with much higher occupancy. And the length of stay also in this market really ranges from 3 to 5 days, with high season being significantly different than low season. And then right here, we have your revenue. And as you can see, it's pretty similar to that in Nuevo Vallarta. And again, you can notice the difference between high and low season. Also pretty similar when it comes to the 5 and 6 bedrooms, producing significantly more revenue. 1, 2, 3 being in that lower under the 9.5K area. And then a 4-bedroom boosts you up a lot. So most of the time, if it's within my client's capacity, and a lot of times you might even be deciding between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom with the same price point or a very similar price point, it's always going to be worth it to go for that 4-bedroom, because that's going to bump you into an area of properties where there's a lot less competition, and you're going to see your revenue shoot up a little bit more exponentially at that point. And once again, here you can see that houses score higher than apartments in general, which is another reason why if you're looking for an investment property specifically, I would probably nudge you towards a house if that's something you would be open to. So here also you can see with the distribution of listing revenue, you have only the 90th percentile is really above 5K a month range. So you can see that it's about the top 10% that are getting the higher producing properties, which of course alters the average a little bit. That might give you some perspective on what to expect from the properties that you might be considering. So here you can just take a look at all of this and the revenue per available rental and how far in advance guests are booking for the romantic zone. Okay, so right now, before we wrap up, I just want to give you a little bit of insight into what it looks like to look at one specific property. So airDNA has this tool called a rentalizer, and it calculates the rental analysis on a specific individual property. So pretty much you can add any address into the database and it will pull up some of the stats and the revenue for comparables in that area. However, for some reason it seems to be down right now. It's not working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rental revenue analysis that I've done for a client for a specific property in the Nuevo Vallarta area. So you can take a look at what particular stats the airDNA platform offers and get a little bit more insight of the Nuevo Vallarta rental market. So here is a example. And now I'll just put a little bit more information about the area that we're analyzing. And then this is an overview of the market, the information that we just saw. And this also is from a couple months ago. I want to say it was probably from around September or August. So it's not as updated as the stats we just saw, but you get an idea. And this is all just the stuff we just took a look at. And then here you have the listing. This particular listing was a pocket listing. It wasn't in the MLS. So they gave me the information that I could provide here. You can see that my client's Canadian, so she had requested Canadian information, such as Canadian dollars. It was about a 787,000 Canadian dollar property, 10 million pesos. And then we can break down the price per square meter and the total size of the property, the size of the land the property is on. And this was a 4-bed, 4-bath with 3 parking spaces, electrical security system, Chacum finishes. And I could do a whole video about Chacum, but it's a very nice material that's being commonly utilized in newer developments in Puerto Vallarta area. And it's very practical and very high quality. And then front patio, outdoor kitchen, barbecue, private pool, walk-in closets. This place was honestly an amazing listing and just a really beautiful property. So, we're just looking at the numbers though right now. So you can see projected revenue was about 852,000 pesos. And then the occupancy of 45%, pretty in line with the general Nuevo Vallarta occupancy. And then right here are the comps. So these comps are, this one is VRBO, and it's 1.7 million pesos in revenue potential, and it's available 351 days a year, so you can see that it's pretty much all the time available, and is probably primarily a business. A 4-bed, 4-bath, 60% occupancy, and the daily rate is 7.8 thousand pesos. And then right here, you have one that is, these both are pretty similar to the property that was listed. And I've also linked them here in this PDF. So you can take a look at what does a property that's really similar look like, and also what is their marketing? How good are their photos? What does the inside look like? Really being able to deep dive into those comparables is an important detail, I think, so you know what you're up against and what the competition looks like, and also how accurate is the analysis. So this one is another one, also linked. The VRBO isn't linked because I think I remember the link wasn't really working. And just taking a look at that one too. And it looks very similar to the property that my client was interested in. Very nice listing here. And this one, both of those, 4-bed, 4-bath. This one is available 336 days a year, 356, but has 29% occupancy. This one has 38% occupancy. So the 60% one is obviously doing a little bit better and then has a much higher revenue potential than these other two. But for all of them, you have an idea of what the daily rate is. Here is 4.6 thousand pesos, and here is 3.9 thousand pesos. So, between the $200 to $300 range for these two. And then this one is closer to almost 400, like 350 a night. So it gives you an idea. Here we have the short-term revenue projections for this particular property. And again, it does show you, this is in pesos. For a while, they were only showing pesos and you couldn't get it in dollars, but now it's bounced back to dollars. They've been consistently updating the platform and making changes here and there. And then here you can take a look at this one, the operating expenses, 269,000 pesos. And so the net operating income is looking more like 583,000, and that's a 5% cap rate. And right here, what you can see is the operating expenses is an important detail. So you're looking at, if you're going to have property management, a 20% fee for the revenue. So that's a pretty big one. If there's a way you can cut that, then obviously that saves a lot of money, but it's pretty difficult. I do have clients that have figured out some workarounds. But ultimately that's what makes it passive income if you are able to hire a property management company. Lodging tax is the Airbnb tax, which is about 3%. And then the property taxes are very low. I just estimate them at 0.25% because that's pretty close to accurate, but it's not a 100% guaranteed number. And then the cleaning fees I put in here as well. And basically most of the other things I left out. This is particularly because this property doesn't have HOA fees and is all solar panels. So I would imagine the electric bill would be quite low. And we were just doing a very broad analysis here. And then what are you going to invest up front? The closing costs, you can usually expect about 6 to 10%. And then home furnishings here we also have. So these startup costs also add to the initial investment, which will then decrease a little bit your cap rate or your return here. And this was a fully unfurnished place, so that can be an important detail. However, you can also furnish it pretty strategically if it comes unfurnished, which could impact your long-term returns as well, which is an important detail to consider. So here we're looking at the net revenue. Depending on how often the unit would be owner occupied and other factors such as marketing strength and occupancy rate, gross revenue could range anywhere between 852,700, which is 45% occupancy, to 1,130,697 pesos, which is 60% occupancy based on the comps that we just looked at. So the net revenue is looking to be between 45,000 and 66,000 Canadian dollars a year. So that was just an analysis for my client. And you could just get a little bit of insight there into what those details look like and what kind of information is available when you're considering purchasing a property in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, or Nuevo Vallarta. As you can see, there's a wide variety of inventory in Nuevo Vallarta, including larger houses. And growth is still very much underway. With Vedanta World's theme park project popping up nearby, planned infrastructural growth, and dozens of new shops and restaurants opening up on Nuevo Vallarta Boulevard this past year and continuing to open up, it's pretty safe to say it's a promising place to invest. I hope this info was helpful in giving you some perspective on the return of investment for a potential purchase in Nuevo Vallarta. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you have any questions or if you would like a rental analysis of a property that you're interested in. And make sure to share your perspective in the comments. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Until next time, ciao.